Aw man, what a ride. For a long time when you heard the word Sega, more than likely your mind went straight to Sonic the Hedgehog, and for good reason. Sonic was and still is the face of the company, but in recent years, the Yakuza series has been making its rounds and found some much deserved success in the West. Now that we're 7 games deep, I'm also a fan of the Yakuza series and is quickly becoming my favorite non-Sonic Sega property outside of Knights and Super Monkey Ball. Like many others who were just getting into the Yakuza series, I started with Yakuza 0, and man, I was blown away. Not only was the gameplay, minigames, and combat awesome, but the story. The story, hands down, is one of the best stories in gaming, period, and I stand by that. After Yakuza 0, I ended up playing Kiwami 1 and 2, which are remasters of the original games on PS2, and the remastered trilogy of the PS3 games, which included Yakuza 3, 4, and 5. And well, outside of 3, these games were not necessarily my favorite, but now we're at Yakuza 6. Did this game relieve me of the franchise fatigue I was feeling and make me fall back in love with the series? Well, let's get into it. First off, Yakuza 6 is considered the end of the Kiryu saga, which means this game is supposed to give closure to all the adventures Kiryu took on and more. Without going deep into the story, let's just say this: I absolutely love this narrative. This is easily my second favorite story so far in the entire series behind Yakuza 0. The stakes are high, we have a legitimate motivation, and seeing how certain characters develop, it was really good to see. The story is pretty much centered around Haruka, and yes, I read y'all comments on my Yakuza 5 review. I have always called Haruka Haruka, but I do appreciate the community correcting me on that. I appreciate and love you guys. But anyway, Haruka gets into a bad accident and is pretty much in a long coma. Kiryu finds out about this and wants to know who is responsible, but he also finds out something else. Haruka has a son. Yeah, and now we need to track down the father. And man, does this story get crazy. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything. I try to let my viewers experience the story for themselves. But man, this story was good. I mean, really good, and offers some memorable characters. I really dug Jong Jin-ha. I really hope I said that right. His fights were the highlights for me and just seemed like a really cool character overall. I really like Kayomi. Any character who holds my man Kiryu down is always good in my book. And let's not forget about Ed. Even though he is a scum, his ruthlessness was still pretty cool to see on screen and during the cutscenes. Now, in terms of the presentation, this game is absolutely stunning. This game was made for the PS4 hardware with the utilization of the Dragon engine. This game's presentation is one of the best in the series. So far, the only other game we played that used this technology was Kiwami 2, but man, the Dragon engine makes playing any Yakuza game a great experience. First off, the environments. Just like Yakuza 3 and 5, this game takes you out of the city of Kamurocho for a while, and this time we spend a considerable amount of time in Hiroshima, and wow, I love this. Anytime we get to explore a new area outside of Tokyo, it feels amazing and refreshing. It isn't much to do in this new town, but I love the aesthetics so much. It's great. Of course, eventually we find our way back to Tokyo, but again, I love the visual variety. Gameplay wise, the Dragon engine makes the experience second to none in comparison to other Yakuza games. There is no load times between going into buildings, getting into random combat encounters, and also between boss fights and cutscenes. Everything is super smooth, even down to the lighting and looks of the environments. The tech behind this is very impressive. Now, I know I said during my Kiwami 2 review, I didn't really care so much for the simplified combat, but in Yakuza 6, it actually felt really good and much better for some reason. I think Yakuza 0 and Kiwami 1 combat is still my favorite overall, but this was fun. Like Kiwami 2, there is plenty to do, and if you know me, I love Club Sega, and I played the hell out of the games that were offered here. Now you have Puyo Puyo and Virtual Fighter 5, which is a very fun game if you never played it. You could also explore the different restaurants around, giving Kiryu a stat boost as he eats away. Sub-stories make a return and more. There's plenty to do for those who enjoys the side content that the games offer. Just like all Yakuza games, this game has epic boss fights, but unlike those games, the difficulty of these fights are kinda lacking. I think I only had to use healing items during the final boss encounter. Not to say these fights are not fun to watch and play and they're not a spectacle, because no, they're a blast and very fun to watch, but I found this to be the easiest Yakuza game in terms of combat and how forgiving some of these things are. The bosses aren't even as block heavy as previous titles, but I do appreciate that. Heat moves make a return here, and they are brutal as ever. Of course, when you level Kiryu up, you have much more variety in what you can pull off, so always be looking for opportunities to level up. I also love the fact that you can have a crew fight with you. Even though the NPCs are not the smartest, it's still fun to see. Overall, Yakuza 6 is amazing. It's my favorite Yakuza game behind Yakuza 0. I love the use of the Dragon Engine. The story is great, the game looks good, the combat is fun, and there's just so much to do in the game as a whole. I love it. As far as dislikes, I didn't really like the real-time strategy game they made you play midway through the game. It's kind of a pet peeve when Yakuza games make you adopt a new gameplay style just to progress the story, with the exception of Yakuza 5 because I actually enjoyed that. But overall, it's a great game. And yes, if you never played a Yakuza game before, you can most definitely play Yakuza 6 because this game does a good job in recapping the past events and who the characters are. So I would say play it. Listen, if this is your first time rocking with me, I appreciate it. Make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, hit that bell notification, and continue to rock with me. Like I said, I have a lot going on for 2023. And by the way, Happy New Year for those who celebrate it. But I have a lot going on in 2023. I'm going to be super busy starting this month. So if you guys don't see content from me on this channel, make sure you guys go to the website, olympusgamingtv.com, and just check out the blog. I'll be updating that kind of more frequently so you guys can know what's going on with me in the channel. All right. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.